ever get that feeling? You know that feeling, right? Like there's this invisible force kind of holding you back.
Yeah.
Those big goals, those challenges, they seem way, way more intimidating than they need to be.
Oh, absolutely.
So today we're going to be diving into this idea, this concept called dispelling the charm.
Okay.
And it's all about seeing things with a lot more, with a much clearer perspective.
Yeah.
So, and hopefully unlocking a lot more possibility for all of us.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating stuff. And it's really interesting you bring up that, that feeling. I think we all experience that.
Yes.
Dispelling the charm. If you want to get really technical,
Okay.
the original Chinese, it's all about sort of stripping away those layers, right? The intimidation, the fear, maybe even the kind of idealization that we put on situations or even on people.
Yeah, like starting a new job,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And everyone else seems like they have it all figured out, and you're just trying not to, like, completely mess everything up.
Yeah, a perfect example. That like overwhelmed feeling like it's just too much. This is too much to handle.
Yeah.
This idea of dispelling the charm, it's really about breaking down those barriers, those mental barriers, so you can approach things more objectively.
Yeah, I like it. Just thinking about it, I'm already feeling a little less overwhelmed. But okay, let's be real, right? Some of our listeners might be thinking, okay, this sounds kind of interesting, but why bother? Like, why is this so important?
Such a good question. And the blog post kind of zeroes in on two really, really compelling reasons this matters. The first one is our own minds, right? Cognitive biases. Our brains, they tend to play these little tricks on us.
Wait, our brains play tricks on us?
Yeah.
Like those optical illusions where you can't tell which line is longer?
Well, maybe not quite that literal.
Okay.
But in a way, yes. Think about the halo effect, right?
Okay.
We naturally just assume that things or people who we find attractive must also have other positive qualities.
Oh, I see.
Right. Someone who we find physically attractive, we might also think, oh, they must also be intelligent or trustworthy, even competent.
Right.
Even if that's not actually true.
Oh, I totally see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like when you see a product that's like really beautifully designed, you just assume that it's a great product, even if you've never even, read a single review.
Exactly. We make these snap judgments based on these like superficial things,
Right.
That charm. And dispelling the charm, it helps us see things for what they really are, right? So we can actually make better decisions.
Right. More objective decisions.
Exactly.
About like everything.
Everything.
The people we trust, the stuff we buy.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like by recognizing these biases, we can kind of avoid some of those maybe bad decisions.
Potentially, yeah.
Okay. What about that second reason you were mentioning? Something about illusion, right?
Yeah. This one's a little bit more philosophical, big picture stuff, but it's just as important. The blog post argues that, we are surrounded constantly by facades.
Okay.
Right? Things aren't always what they seem. And dispelling the charm, it's like it pushes us to see beyond those curated images, to cut through the BS, really.
Yeah, like those perfectly filtered Instagram feeds. Like, come on, everyone's life looks like a highlight reel.
Exactly.
I never see the, the hard parts or just the regular boring parts of life.
Exactly. And it's not just other people. We do this to ourselves, too.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. We create these, like, perfect versions of who we think we should be. The perfect job, the perfect relationship.
A perfect Instagrammable avocado toast, right?
Yeah, exactly. But holding on to that, it can really hold us back from finding, real happiness, I think.
So it's like, if we can learn to kind of like dispel the charm of those perfect images, those perfect ideas, right? Of ourselves, of other people.
Yeah.
Maybe we can be a little more like authentic in our own lives, how we interact with people.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about stripping away those layers of expectation, right? Seeing things, seeing ourselves just more clearly.
Okay. I'm into this. This is fascinating.
Yeah.
But I'm betting our listeners are like, okay, how do we actually use this? Like, what do we do? How do we actually dispel the charm?
Yeah. No, it's a very active process. And the blog post actually gives like a two-pronged approach.
Okay.
So first, it's about tackling the charm we associate with things.
Okay.
And then separately, we've got to address the charm we often project onto people.
Okay. Let's break those down.
Yeah.
So starting with dispelling the charm of things, what does that even mean? Like, are we talking about like actual physical things?
It's lint about like, physical stuff and more about shifting your mindset.
Okay.
It's moving away from that feeling of ugh, this is impossible, it's too much, it's too scary.
Yeah.
And kind of moving towards a more empowered feeling of, I can totally do this, It's doable.
Yeah.
Let's break it down.
Yeah, I think we've all been there, right?
Oh, yeah.
Where you're just like frozen by that feeling of being totally overwhelmed. You don't even know where to start.
It's so common. And actually, the author of this blog post uses the example of applying for jobs.
Okay.
And it really resonated with me.
Yeah.
How often do we talk ourselves out of even applying for the job?
Right. Yeah.
Because we tell ourselves, oh, I don't fit every requirement. I don't check every box.
Right.
So we just don't even try.
Yes.
We get so caught up in this like charm of this perfect candidate
Yeah.
that we don't even think we deserve to apply.
Okay. I have definitely been there so
Yeah.
many times. I've convinced myself like, nope, not qualified enough. I'm not even going to bother.
Right. And this approach is saying, what's the harm in trying?
Right.
What's the worst that can actually happen? Even if you don't get it.
Right.
Just the act of applying, putting yourself out there, it's a learning experience in itself.
It's like reframing those, what we see as failures, as like opportunities for growth.
Exactly.
You learn something. And who knows, you might surprise yourself.
You just never know.
Yeah.
And the more you do that, the more you challenge those self-limiting beliefs.
Right.
The easier it becomes to just approach everything in your life like that.
Right. To kind of dispel the charm.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. But we've got the second part of this. So dispelling the charm of people.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like this could be a little trickier.
Yeah. It can be. It can be. Yeah.
All right, let's get into it. I want to know, like, how does this work with our relationships? Especially with people who we find a little intimidating.
Yeah.
The people who just seem like they've got it all figured out.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're back,
Mm-hmm.
and we're ready to get into like the nitty-gritty of dispelling the charm when it comes to other people. This is where it gets real. Frank,
Yeah.
because I feel like we all have those people in our lives,
Yeah.
the bosses, the mentors, the influencers, who just seem to have it all figured out.
Totally. And it's
Yeah.
really easy to put those people on a pedestal, right?
Yeah.
Like they're somehow above all the normal stuff,
Yeah.
all the struggles.
Right. Like they don't deal with all the day-to-day that we deal with.
Yeah.
So like how do we dispel the charm with people?
Yeah.
Because let's be real, you can't just walk up to your intimidating boss and be like, you're not all that.
Right. No, that's not the best strategy.
Yeah. Probably not going to go over well.
No, probably not. And I think this is where, that whole thing about remembering everybody's human comes in.
Yeah.
Right? We get so focused on, the highlight reel, like you see the outward success. But we kind of forget, like, everyone, no matter how put together they seem, everybody faces challenges. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody, like, puts their pants on one leg at a time.
That's a good point. It's like those videos, right? Like day in the life of a CEO.
Oh, yeah.
And they're all perfectly scripted. You
Yeah.
never see the like self-doubt or the really hard decisions or even just like staying up all night stressing about spreadsheets.
Exactly. And the more I think we can remind ourselves of that, the more we can start to connect with people, as humans.
Yeah, yeah. Like on a human level, right?
Right.
Not putting them up on a pedestal.
Right. It's not about, taking away their accomplishments,
Right.
but it makes them feel more relatable.
Yeah, it's like it levels the playing field a little bit. You know what I mean?
Totally. And that's, I think, where this whole dispelling the charm thing can be so powerful, because when we stop putting other people on a pedestal, then we also kind of free ourselves from that pressure
Yeah, yeah.
of having to live up to this like impossible standard.
Right.
And we can just be ourselves.
Yeah, it's not about like tearing other people down to make ourselves feel better,
No, not at all.
It's about that recognition that we're all kind of like figuring it out as we go.
We are all in this together. And that I think is so powerful. It allows us to, connect with people in a real way, to build relationships based on actual like respect, and understanding, not this like who's cooler, who's more charming, who's got it more figured out.
Okay, so to bring it back to our listeners, listening right now,
Yeah.
how do they actually start to do this? How do they start applying dispelling the charm in their actual lives, like starting today?
Well, it starts honestly with just noticing. Pay attention. Like throughout your day, notice when you have that reaction, that twinge of intimidation or that feeling of, oh, I could never be like that.
Hmm.
Or that urge to put someone on a pedestal. And just notice it.
Okay, so like becoming like a detective of your own thoughts,
Yeah,
basically.
exactly. And then once you start to recognize that pattern, that's when you can start to challenge it.
Okay.
You can ask yourself, like, hold on a second. Is this really true? Or am I just like letting my perception get clouded by this idea of this person being more intimidating than they really are?
Oh, I like that. So like bringing those hidden like assumptions to the surface, right?
Yeah.
Shining a light on them.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And as you start to do that more and more, you will notice something really, really interesting happening. Like those things that felt so intimidating, those people who seemed so impossible to live up to, they start to feel a little less daunting.
Yeah.
You'll start to see the cracks, you'll start to see the humanity.
It's like in The Wizard of Oz, like when they finally realize that the wizard is just a guy behind a curtain.
Yes.
It's not that the magic isn't real, but it becomes more attainable somehow.
100%. And that's a really key takeaway here. Like dispelling the charm, it's not about becoming like cynical or jaded.
Right.
It's about approaching the world, approaching ourselves with just more honesty, with a more real perspective. We are all in this together. We're all just trying to figure it out. And honestly, there's something really, really freeing about that.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a perfect place to kind of transition into the last part of this conversation. So we spent all this time, right, diving deep into this whole dispelling the charm thing, and I feel like we've really like unlocked something.
Yeah.
It's a toolkit for life, but like any tools, they only really work if you use them.
That's such a good point. Yeah, it's not enough to just like listen and think, "Oh yeah, that's a cool idea. We've got to actually do something."
Right. So for our listeners who are like, "Okay, I'm ready. Let's do this. Let's dispel some charm." Like, where do they even begin?
Well, I always tell people, start by just noticing. Throughout your day, pay attention to how you react to things, to people. When you feel that little twinge of, "Oh, I'm intimidated," or "Ugh, I could never do that," or even just like when you start putting someone up on a pedestal, just notice it.
Okay, so it's about like, almost becoming like a detective, but a detective of your own thoughts.
Exactly. Exactly. And once you start to see the pattern, that's when you can start to question those assumptions. Like, hold on a second, is this really true? Or is it just like, am I letting my own perception kind of get in the way?
I see. So you're bringing those like hidden assumptions to the surface.
Yes.
You're forcing them out into the open.
Exactly. Shine a light on them. And as you do that, you will start to notice those obstacles, those really intimidating things. They won't seem quite so scary anymore.
Yeah.
You start to see the cracks, the humanity.
It's like, it's almost like in that movie, The Wizard of Oz. Like when they finally see that the wizard is just a regular person behind a curtain, right?
Yes.
It doesn't take away from the magic of it, but it does make it feel a little more real.
100%. And that's, I think, what this all comes down to. Like, it's not about becoming cynical or jaded,
Right.
It's about seeing the world, seeing ourselves with clear eyes.
Right, just being real about it all.
Yeah. We're all in this together. We're all just figuring it out as we go. And honestly, there's a lot of freedom in that.
Yeah, I love that. This has been amazing. Really, really insightful.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, I think our listeners are walking away with like a whole new perspective, a whole new understanding of, how powerful our perception can be, and hopefully a little bit more compassion
Totally.
for themselves and for other people.
Absolutely.
Well, that is all the time we have for today's deep dive.
It flew by.
It really did. But for our listeners, keep thinking about these ideas, challenge those assumptions, and remember, you have the power. You can dispel the charm. You can create a more authentic life, one step at a time. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and as always, keep diving deep.